Hi, new supervisors. So this is the section on training, supervision, and communication. So I'm going to go into those one at a time. So off the bat, training. As you have a new Promise Fellow, it really just depends on their start date. So people that are starting on either the 1st or the 16th will have the opportunity to join us at the Promise Fellow Institute. So that is September 20th through the 22nd, and you should have that in your training calendar. And really during this time, there'll be a lot of training that will help orient the Promise Fellow to both the interventions that they offer, so that's the caring adults, service, and service learning, and out-of-school supports. And then we'll also have other training opportunities such as identity exploration that will be offered through the YWCA. Then on the support side, all of you will have support through the training team. So as you should have seen from the first welcome webinar, that there is 4 training members or directors of training. So that is Selena, Noam, Kathy, and Sarah. And then additionally, we will, for the first time, have Promise Fellow leaders. So there's 2 AmeriCorps members joining us that will help offer more engagement pieces for Promise Fellows throughout the state. And we even come out to visit you. So we have site visits in the fall and the spring. So that's really when we're coming out to see how the Promise Fellow model is both implemented and doing at your site, and then offer you both honor what's going well and then offer any feedback for the spring. Then, as you can see on any calendar, there is core meetings. So about every month there's a small core meeting. So the Promise Fellow will be coming with their cohort of other members and meeting and doing trainings that are timed throughout the year. We also have regional trainings that happen in November, and then once again in the spring. And then finally we have mid and end of year retreats. So there's a mid-year retreat that will happen in February for Promise Fellows throughout the state. And then we also just have an individual, more regional-based mid-year training for supervisors to make sure that we all can support you as much as possible. And really, the on-site support that we want to make sure that happens is that you all are doing an on-site orientation for Promise Fellows, that you are providing weekly supervision, that you're giving that member regular coaching, and then there is an evaluation that will happen twice a year through us, that there's a mid and end of year evaluation where you can go through and both give feedback to the member, and the member can say their perspective of how everything's going at the site. So right now, this is skewed more towards people that are starting in September, but for the first month of the Promise Fellow program, there'll be welcome webinars on the 1st and the 16th, but there'll be a welcome webinar for every Promise Fellow that starts on any start date, and we'll make sure to make that clear with both them and you all. There's a small core training, so if you are starting on the 1st, there's a full day small core on the 5th through the 8th, so your Promise Fellow will just be going to one of those days. And then we will also have a small core training for any of the September 16th starts late in September. So on September 27th will be the first small core training for people that start on September 16th. Then, like I said, there's the Promise Fellow Institute, which is a 3-day-long training that will be happening at the TIES Conference Center, which is in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. And then as supervisors, you'd be attending that training on September 22nd. And once again, more on the host site side is making sure that as a site that you're providing an orientation to the site, an introduction to staff, and any site-specific training that you need for the supports that they'd be offering students. All right, so to segue into supervision. So right now, here's just a list of some of the important dates that will happen throughout the year. So please make sure that you know your start date and end date for Promise Fellows, because when they start and when they end is when we need to make sure that they're getting to that 1,720 hours. And so that's where It is your job as a supervisor to approve timesheets, so you're making sure you're going into their timesheets, authorizing them and giving them any feedback on the activities that they're doing, or making sure that they document their time accurately. Like I said, there's trainings. So monthly there'll be a training for your Promise Fellow. They have those evaluations, and those evaluations need to be done by the dates that are given in the small core or in the Promise Fellow calendar. And then throughout the year, there is data benchmarks, so making sure that they are keeping up to date with that quarterly attendance, engagement, and work completion data. And then we will come out and visit you in the fall for a site visit, and then most likely in the spring we'll do a site visit phone call to do a follow-up and see how things have progressed throughout the year. So please make sure that you're going through and doing your onboarding orientation and any site-based training that you require. As a site, you need to provide administrative support, so that's everything from space, supplies, equipment, computers, what the Promise Fellow needs in order to engage at your site. Then in your host site agreement, if there's any service-related transportation, so for the required trainings that they come to the Alliance, they need to go to you all as a site for reimbursement. So please make sure that they understand those procedures and policies well for your site. And then even though it might be early in the year as you're listening to this, you need to make sure that you're planning for service over site breaks. So there might be an MEA break. There could be a break around Thanksgiving, a winter break. Summer months. It's really your job as a supervisor to make sure that the Promise Fellow has opportunities to serve full time. So really making sure that they know how they can get to 40 hours per week, no matter what time of year it is. And then for supporting an AmeriCorps member, please make sure that you're really going through and seeing how their service role is clear to both you as a supervisor and your organization, and supporting as a site. So that could be introducing them in a staff meeting, going through and explaining their role. Then, like I said in the previous slide, you're making sure that your Promise Fellow is on track to serve the right amount of hours, doing appropriate activities, and once again, that's in the member agreement and host site agreement, and then just completing all of the required grant requirements. Then, like I said before, you should be reviewing and doing timesheet approval, and that needs to be done. Promise Fellows will submit their timesheet after their last day of the pay period. So that would be on the 16th and the 1st, and then it's up to you as the supervisor to be approving it a day after that. So really there's a small window of time to approve timesheets. And that's also where you'd be making sure that you're verifying hours when they're on-site and off-site. And just please, as much as possible, provide context. So connecting the dots to what the Promise Fellow is doing or what support they're providing, how that's impactful for your school or community-based site. And then, as always, please feel free to reach out to us if there's anything that comes up. So you have a trainer, and it is our job to make sure that we try to answer any questions and provide the support that you all need. So going into more of the attendance pieces and discipline pieces, the short of it is the Promise Fellow must follow the policies of both the Alliance and your host site. So making sure that they're attending every day, that they're showing up, that they're attending all of our Alliance trainings. And the reality is that there isn't any vacation or sick days that are built into their schedule. It is that 1,720 hours where they're expected to serve 40 hours per week. So you need to make sure that you're working with them to adjust schedule as need be. So if one day they couldn't serve because they were sick, figuring out the days that they can make up for those missed hours. And then making sure that you go through and, as a supervisor, approving any time off if there is necessary time off. So on the other side of that, we have a discipline policy, which you'll get more information in our in-person training. But there's the 3 steps. So it starts with a verbal warning. You need to make sure that you document those pieces in order to provide support, because the Alliance acts as the human resource arm. So if there is a written corrective action plan that happens between us at the Alliance, you as a supervisor and then that Promise Fellow. And if the corrective action plan can't be or isn't successful, then that can lead to suspension and or termination from service. And there are additional alliance policies. Once again, you all as supervisors need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to look through these. They're included in your member agreement, and you must sign it before your member can start service. So there's a drug-free workplace policy, a fundraising policy, grievance procedures, discrimination and harassment policy. So please make sure that you're going through any and all those pieces. And then finally, communication. So like I said, you as a site supervisor have a Promise Fellow trainer that acts as your support. So we reach out to you primarily via email. Please make sure that both the Promise Fellow and the supervisor, and as the supervisor, that you're staying up to date via email, because we're supporting many members and email is often the quickest. We do try to get back to you within 24 hours. Please follow up if we have not gotten back to you, and it's really our job to make sure that we're supporting you. So make sure that you just reach out to us. So if you have a question or if you're curious about something, we want to make sure that we're helping you as much as possible. And then another piece is that we're communicating with your site that this person is a Promise Fellow member. So we do our best to make sure that the Promise Fellow has gear, so a long sleeve shirt, a short sleeve shirt, other AmeriCorps items. We try to make them AmeriCorps sign. We'll give them kind of a signature that they can use on their email that will denote that they're serving through Minnesota Alliance with you at your host site. So please make sure that that person is really showing off that they're an AmeriCorps member and that they're adding to your community. So please, as always, reach out if you have any questions. You have a trainer. It is our job to make sure that we're doing our best to support you all.